We all know why we're here. So let me ask you a question then. Why the big secret? Truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, break it down, now can you peep it? They're deceiving all the people. Let me ask you, what's the secret? Misinformation and lies, a devious disguise. They want the EMF blast until our brains is fried. Oh, point their beams in the sky. Oh, it's a movie now. This world is all CGI, their plot is truly foul. But we're here to rise up and bring the real. Time is now, truth seekers, y'all know how I feel. Truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers were really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, why the big secret?
Good evening. It is time to believe. In 1947, we had the Roswell, New Mexico incident. In 1952, we had the Washington, D.C. UFO incident. In 1961, we had the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. In 1973, we had the Pascagoula abduction, which was two men in Mississippi that claimed to be abducted by aliens. No one really believed them. In 1976, we had the Travis Walton abduction. In 1977, we had the Clores UFO flap. 1980, Renderson Forest. 1989, the Belgian UFO wave. It is time to believe. In 1997, we had the Phoenix Lights, and nobody really believed it. In 2004, we had the U.S. Nimitz incidents, which now has a little shade. In 2007, we had the Chicago O'Hara incident. And now we're in 2017, we had the New York Times disclosure. And then 2020, we had the Department of Defense establish the aerial UAP task force. And then in 2021, the U.S. government reported the UFOs are now flying around and we really don't know what it is. But in 2023, we had the greatest thing to happen on June 12th, which is Dr. Stephen Greer decided to come forward. He decided to do what the young folks say is give me the receipts. And as he showed the receipts, it was just a profound moment as we seen redemption and we seen that people all over the world was to a point to say, I'm not crazy. And I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy. But today I got a panelist of my friends. We're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to talk about what is really happening. And my question to all of you, are you ready? Because nothing will be as it was ever again as we move forward into the future when it comes down to the UFO topic. And with that being said, we're going to just jump into how we do it here. Truth Seekers, it is Tuesday night. I want to welcome you here to Forbidden Knowledge TV. I'm your host, Roderick Martin, and like I've always told you, you could have been any other place tonight, but you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, we're going to serve you. But first, I want to bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the 24 time zones that the show aired. And I tell you what, we're going to be the boldest, baffling, belligerent YouTube channel in the world, creating captivating conversations that'll certainly cause controversy. But let me give you a little backstory. I'm located in that jumbo state. This is where those UFOs come out to play. It's a Texas thing, y'all. And everything in Texas run big, but not bigger than what's happening right now. And we're going to talk about it, and you better be ready. Put the children to bed, because what we talk about is not PG. And as always, if you have not cooked dinner for everyone, I'm going to give you a good Texas recipe. And that's some butter, some bacon, some biscuits. You can do that pretty quick. Breakfast all day works. But in the meantime, this is bigger. It's redemption time. It is one of those things that I think we should talk about. And you should now go to the water coolers at work, and you're going to have some more conversation. But are we really ready? Are you ready to have an extraterrestrial in a drive-thru with you at McDonald's? Or what about at Walmart? Or what about wherever? But it looks like they're coming, and it looks like that we need to be ready for it. But anyway, I'm excited. Let me get the guys together, because we're going to do it. Yes, I am jump ready. I got my liquid in here. It's not liquid courage, it's water. And we're going to truly get this thing going, and I hope it all. But anyway, let me shut the music down, and it's all classical from there. So I'm going to bring the panel up and get right to it. And I just want to thank each and every one of you. And hopefully, like I said, if you hadn't had an opportunity, watch the Stephen Greer's presentation. But before that, go all the way back to a day before, where you're going to see him and Billy Carson do a interview, which actually go into some depths and some things. So I think it's a dual action. You should watch that one, and you should watch the next one, and you will not be disappointed from there. And so, like I said, I just want to prepare everyone. I've been in this business for quite some time. I'm a certified UFO investigator for MUFON, done several television shows, about 9 in the last year and a half, all about UFOs and this extraterrestrial thing. And all of the questions have always been the mystery behind what is going on, even in the dark, even talking to my family members and everyone else is, are UFOs real? Are aliens here? Well, I think right now that it's going to be a change of a whole lot of things, and wherever the agenda is of disclosure, we still got to pay a close attention to it. And then when you talk about what Dr. Greer talks about being ready for the future, we're going to get into that. And then we're going to also talk about a couple of what some of these witnesses said tonight. We're going to get into it with the panel. And then we're going to talk about something startling, okay? And let me give you a couple of facts about that real quickly that I have in my little notes here, that I go over some of those quick little facts. But in particular would be this one. In the last 10 years, I did some data at the National Crime Center, NCIC, and something started. I said, well, you know what? Let's just see how many people coming up missing, since we're going to talk about human trafficking coming down with some of these contractors here. Yes, you heard me. And I looked up in 2010, there was almost 692,000 people that came up missing. 2011, 678,000. 2012, 661,000. 2013, 627,000. 2014, you guessed it, another 640,000. 2016, why not guess again? 647,000. 2017, yeah, your kid got this was right, 651,000. 2018, yes, you will pass the test, 612,000. You see where I'm going with this? 2019, 600,000. Okay, it dropped off to 540, 520. I would just kind of spectacle as being why the big secret, because, you know, like I tell everybody, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. You have to think why. And I'm sitting here going, I'm not just looking at the data. and how and what is happening. I want to know why is that? Why is this number? It's almost like a quota and somebody saying, let's just stay under the radar. But I know what we're talking about ain't going to all combine this all in this one umbrella or one bowl. But it's worth us thinking about when you think about so many people, millions a year coming up missing. Where do they go? Now, we did have the Mayan calendar, right? And every 2012, and a whole civilization comes up missing. So I'm not surprised. We're just going to talk about that. Let me bring the fellas up and bring them into the panel tonight. And pretty much. So we have at the top over here is Reverend Michael Carter. And you're going to hear me call him Michael. That's my boy. But you know what? Let's give him the respect. Reverend Carter. We're going to do that today. Down over to the other side, right under me. Actually, my twin and actually my stunt double. Oh, actually, I'm his stunt double, really. You'd be surprised. And it's Dave Scott, right? And he's with Spaced Out Radio. In fact, later on tonight, he will be doing a show. So you definitely could, if you up, and you will be up because we're going to have some great stuff tonight, just hop right on over there by the time we're finished. Over there is Tim Seanor. He was here last time with the panel, and he's great guy, journalist and producer as well. And of course, Michael got a book. It's the scriptures. It's about extraterrestrials in the Bible. All right, so we can touch on that a little bit tonight, and pretty much. So, fellas, what's going on? And we're going to get into this Stephen Greer presentation. But first of all, each one of y'all can go around the room and just kind of say hello to this magnificent audience we got tonight.
Yeah, well, I'm always happy to be here, my colleagues, and I want to thank the audience for, as you said, choosing to be here on this Tuesday evening. And it's my pleasure to be here, and thanks for spending the time.
Yeah, big thank you as well, Rod. You and I have been friends for a while now. You've appeared a number of times on Spaced Out Radio with us. So to be here with you on your show is quite the honor, especially to be in a fine company with the Timbit right beside me here and Reverend Michael Carter, who's one of the most brilliant minds in this field as well.
Oh my God.
And you and me being stump doubles and twins. I mean, hey, if you ever need any Canadiana, man, I'll just send you my passport.
Hey, we all good. We all good. We can do it. All right, so we're going to jump right into this thing. Let's just set the tone. Stephen Greer, Dr. Greer has been at this thing for quite some time. He's been in the game for about 30 years, and he's been encroaching up on where we are today. And this event that he did, I thought was just, I didn't expect to hear in the things that he was going to put out there. I just thought for a moment, you know what I'm saying? We're just going to hear some, we're going to hear some whistleblowers. I mean, he had that. But when he went out and started talking about some of the black ops places and locations and just immediately, fellas, I just thought to myself, he has to have a bug out bag. He has to have, he got to. I mean, he has to have a bug out. I got one. I used to sell this preparedness life stuff because, I used to talk about with people, and I used to go to their houses and see what they prepare for or whatever. And then real quickly, I would look under the seat and under the sink, and they got all the poison. And I look up at the shelf, they got the cookies way up there for the kids can't get the cookies, but they can get the poison. And I'm like, look, you got to prepare this different. It's not going to work. All this poison under the sink, but you got the cookies, so they can't get them way up there. But anyway, preparation. And I'm like, I know he's prepared, and I know he has something more in the files, like this, that we're not going to ever see. This is the files that are sitting somewhere in case something happened. And the threat of, y'all don't bother me. If anything happens, this one gets released. This one right here gets released. Y'all going to jail. You ain't going to pass go. You ain't going to collect $200. You're going to go straight to jail. So I think he has a protection method because of what he did the other day probably ruffled some feathers, especially private contacts. Y'all go ahead.
Well, like you, I didn't know what to expect. And, doing this for as long as I have, and probably as long as you guys have, I was a little like, okay, Steve did this back in, the day, as it were. And you sent it to, I think you sent it to me, Roderick. Some people sent it to me. Mm-hmm. And I was at church and I was doing my church stuff. And then I was making time to look at this. And I got to tell you, I was impressed. I have to give Brother Greer his flowers. I watched Brother Carson's questions, and he had a great question today about, what we would call what is justice with this. But not only did Brother Greer give us the loaves and the fishes, he also gave us some steps to take, which is what I really, you see it in politics. You see people can give you the list of things that is wrong, but the question is, well, then what do we do about it? And
Yeah.
so he not only gave us possible solutions, but he said, I can't just do this by myself. You can't be a spectator. This is what's going on, and this is what we need to do. Towards the end, he even talked a little bit about consciousness. We have to change our consciousness, and we can't keep thinking this is an enemy. We can't keep using this technology to make weapons, which is what we're doing. But he, to my mind, all the things that I had read about, all the things I had researched, all the things I've heard people say, somehow the way he laid it out, it just resonated with me on a deep level. And there was some, for me, I feel justified, I feel confirmed, affirmed. And he also did it with class, and he did it, and I'm just going to use the word, he did it with love. He did not say, we got to get these people, and he wants justice to be served, but it was just, I don't know. It moves me so much. This will be a day that will live in infamy.
All right. We got someone said they bought your book right now.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Dave, before you get into it, as he was, just to echo what he was saying and let the audience know, Reverend Carter is an experiencer. And so he's speaking from redemption and at this moment too. So we'll probably get into that a little later. Actually, Dave is an experiencer. We all are. Yeah, I've seen a UFO temp. You know what? I didn't think about that. The commonality that we all have here. Yeah. So yeah, we can get into that. But go ahead, Dave. Let's go.
Well, you know what? I'm always someone, and I'm going to make Tim laugh here because, when we do our UFO report on Spaced Out Radio together, he's usually trying to antagonize me into something. And, the one thing about Dr. Greer is I think for the last 30 years, he has been pushing the merits of the experience of the experiencer, trying to bring this out in government. But as I say to everybody on my show is I try and take everything with a grain of salt. I never try to get too excited about what is said. I want to see what the outcome is over the next few days, because usually the UFO family is very quick to jump on the bandwagon of everything that comes out.
Mhm.
We were
Agreed.
supposed to be impressed with the To the Stars Academy.
Agreed.
Look what happened there. We were supposed to be impressed with the hearings, the congressional hearings that have come out twice now. We've got nothing burgers out of both of those. I don't like to paint a rosy picture, but I don't like to paint a bleak picture either. The fact is, this topic is getting out mainstream. That's a good thing. More people are learning about it. That's a good thing. More people are discussing it. That's an even greater thing. But when you look at the sources, and as Tim and I talked about last night on our show, and unfortunately, sometimes you get these banger ideas with like a minute and a half left. The problem that we have in ufology right now is there's too many factions. There's too many groups pushing for the same thing, and nobody is working together. Imagine how much further in a utopic UFO world we would be if people would put their egos aside, put their sources aside, put their science aside, put their religion aside, and actually worked for the common story, because this is a topic that is going to affect every single human being on this planet. It doesn't matter whether you live in the concrete jungles of LA, New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, or if you live in the forested jungles of Brazil, Thailand, Vietnam, anywhere in Africa. This is a story that's going to affect everybody on this planet. and we're forgetting that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that that's why in the intro, I woke up this morning and said, you know what, Roderick, nothing will be as the same ever again as we go down this road. Now, like you said, we still got to move into not the theory of when they first had the first space shuttle launch, where we all had cameras everywhere for the first two, and now that they had 400, we don't know nothing about, right? And nobody cares. And so at this point, we got to keep the thing on. But I still think most of the public still, no matter how much information is coming out, everybody's still waiting for that one presidential wave, and not from our president, from somewhere from planet Xeon, to be like, hello, Earthlings, I'm here, and that's the one that I think that most people are truly working through. But Tim, from a journalistic approach, he'll give his insights, and I think it's a little different there, and he can kind of tell us exactly, or give us some type of roundabout view of what we really are listening to. So go ahead, Tim.
Rod, thanks so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys tonight. And I'm probably going to surprise you with a really positive viewpoint. For me, this is what disclosure looks like, perhaps to the public as well. So I come into this relatively new. My research started in the year 2019, when my family had an experience. And so for me, something like this creeping into the headlines is massive. And I know Stephen Greer, and I've done plenty of research into his work. And to see something like this happening with such passion and potential, revelations, for me, we're walking a different world today than we did yesterday. This past week has been filled with people coming forward with experiences and their interpretation of their experience without jumping to conclusions. It feels like there's been quite a lot of fair game played. And, it's up to the public now to sit back and digest all of this and consider it, because really, this is all new information. And for any of us to jump to any conclusions as to interpretations or what the real methodology of why it's now and all of this disclosure push, we should just sit back for a moment and enjoy and revel in the fact that this is what disclosure looks like. We're looking for evidence, we're looking for more always, but this is it. Let's enjoy these headlines, and let's also consider the fact that projects like this are pushing majorly towards what we're calling disclosure. Government documents revealing bases and military witnesses and locations and naming names and places, I think, is kind of massive. We're getting to a point now where it's tipping. The scale is tipping, and there's nowhere else for them to run. They're going to have to come forward with the truth. And that's what we're all here for. It's exciting times.
And I hear, and I understand your approach and insight, and definitely one of the things that stood out for me was when Dr. Greer talked about the archives. I got a little list of things he said was in there. Government documents from the United States, you guys neck of the woods. I mean, Dave, Canada, Australia, Russia, UK. He said these files that he gave to 1,000 press people, 145 top secret facilities, bases, and maps, 752 witnesses from military and corporate and government sources, files with witness testimonials, some video supporting documents and information, which lead to the compilation of top secret facilities and bases, 121 UFO crash retrievals. Some documents include names of witnesses, and there was a number of deep throats that were provided intel whose name were unknown but were included into this, or not included into the archives. Why is it not over every single news today, this morning? Why is that? Now that's my question. Why? Right? I still got to go there with him, but he gave 1,000 and he spent money. He says it was a lot of money to give everybody all of these documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
But see, long time ago, I did a show when we talked about the Bilderberg Group. We talked about the connection between these conglomerates and multinational companies and how all of these people are on each other's boards and they controlling the media, which a lot of these were Raytheon and all of these were on that Bilderberg Group. They was on those lists. Could we now see the hands of them now saying, I don't care if he shows the tomb of the Holy Grail and the GPS coordinates where it is, y'all not going to get there. What are we seeing right now? Why are we not hearing? It should have been everywhere this morning.
Can I simplify that for you?
Sure.
If you don't mind, as someone who spent 10 years working in mainstream media, I can tell you this from my experience and the journalists that I've known. Never once have I ever, or anybody I know, been told to whitewash a story or to eliminate a story.
Okay.
It's actually much easier an answer than this, and it's so easy most people won't believe it. It's 100% ego in a newsroom. Okay, you get these people who are in newsrooms about early 2000s, mid 1990s. It started with the O.J. Simpson chase on the highway, and then it went into CNN going into their daily coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial. That's when news died, and we started with infotainment. That's when all of a sudden the Britney Spears drama became more important than your local city council meetings where they were discussing about whether or not the kids would get a new swimming pool. Okay. And, or if the budget would be passed or anything along those lines. That's where it really started. From there, it continued to start to take activism where we actually saw reporters starting to take and lean towards, and stations lead towards political sides. We saw that in the United States first, the two biggest being CNN and Fox News. You know, CNN more Democratic, Fox News being more Republican. That eventually crossed the border into Canada, where we saw a real division of stories starting to go up, and news directors' egos saying, we don't have time to cover those UFOs or those hauntings or whatever it is. I took the phone calls. I know what it was like when all of a sudden you get somebody on the phone. Hey man, you got to get a camera over here quick. There's this UFO hovering above my house. You know, what are you on? Tell me what you're on. How much you smoked today? How much of the hippie lettuce you on? And I found that out also personally when I had a UFO sighting with my friends. And I called into my old newsroom and my buddy John answered the phone. I said, John, it's Dave. And he's like, hey, man, long time no talk. I said, I got a stupid question for you. Has anybody reported a UFO flying over the Fraser River here in British Columbia? And he's like, what are you smoking? And I'm like, nothing, man. You know I don't do that crap. He goes, well, how much have you had to drink tonight? I said, John, I'm being serious here. Like, this thing was massive. It was a massive white orb. And he goes, no. And I'll call you back if I get anything. Well, he didn't have my new number, and he never called me. But that's how they downplay it. They think it's a waste of airtime. They believe it's a waste of video time, and they believe it's a waste of print time and column space for real stories. Okay, that's what it's about. That's all it is. They don't know how to cover this story. The media has made fun of this story for so long that they are literally being punched between the eyes that this is real, and they don't know how to cover it. That's why in 2017, when the big article came out, who did everybody have? The TTSA said, you don't need Richard Dolan. You don't need Grant Cameron. You don't need Linda Moulton Howe. You don't need anybody in this field. We're going to give you the pilot, who is David Fravor. We're going to give you the guy who ran the program, and Luis Elizondo. We're going to give you the government statesman in Chris Mellon. You don't need anything else. So the media, who is supposed to jump in there and do their job and call the story down the middle, they didn't know how to do it. They relied on the information that was given to them because they didn't know how to cover the story and they didn't want to be embarrassed. And that's how it is. And that's why there's no coverage today, because there's zero ego. Or probably it's 100% ego, nothing more.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, Brother Scott. I'm looking at an article in Vanity Fair, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and this article substantiates that Brother Blumenthal and Sister Keene were trying to get the New York Times to run this, and they wouldn't do it. And the reasons, because they didn't feel a sense of urgency, which I think speaks to your point. But I also think, in addition to that, because I don't think that this is either or, there are mechanisms in place to discredit stories like this. And I know that people, well, if I disagree, well, I'm a conspiracy theorist. But if you go back to Project Blue Book and what have you, it's not just that it's ego. There's no doubt. This whole thing is ego, wanting to make weapons and that's all ego. But there is an element of that. We don't want these stories to be taken seriously. I'm not a big fan of Tucker Carlson, but I did post something today, and he asked the same question we asked. How come major news outlets are not talking about this? And there is the political reality. You know, we got an election coming up. You see it even with more terrestrial things, with Ukraine. Nobody wants to start talking peace, at least with us, before this election. We got an election year coming up. You can't tell me that part of the reason Pennsylvania Avenue is not silent is because, A, they don't know how to handle it. We just had Brother Grush talking about this. And so, well, whatever it is, it's a hot potato. I want to get elected. So I want to say that it's more both and than just either or, that it's simply ego. There are powers that be, and you know, talks about this.
I'm saying in a newsroom,
Mhm.
okay? News editors are the most fickle people you will ever meet because they only care about what's broadcasting in their head. Okay. I agree with what you're saying. Any president, doesn't matter whether it's Biden, Trump, whoever, they can't come out and say it. Okay. They can't, because that means they're disclosing it.
Yeah.
Not ready to disclose it. I don't even think, and I'm sure you would agree with me saying this, I don't think they're allowed to disclose it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't. It's almost like climate change. Like the meteorologists, they can't really say it. You know what I mean? They you know, we don't, they don't come out and say, I can't say it, but they will not talk about, they will not use those words when they're talking about the weather. It's almost like, yeah, it's unspoken. We can, otherwise, I agree with you that we're giving legitimacy to it.
And the bigger the publication, the more control there is.
Yeah.
Look, anybody can write about this subject.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it. Like you mentioned, the article in Vanity Fair. There's been a number of political websites that have written about it. Vice magazine has, a lot of news outlets have. But what are they quoting? None of them are getting into the depth of this subject. All the interviewees are the same. It's like you go to Roku or Netflix or Amazon and you rent a UFO documentary. Who do you see on there? It's the same 10 people with the same message on 20 different documentaries.
Yes.
And they're saying the exact same thing. The only thing that's changed is the name of the documentary. That's it. It's the same thing. And it's
point taken.
With the news. Who do they interview? You don't see them reaching out to Roderick or Michael Carter or Tim Seanor or Dave Scott, big names in this field. You don't see that. You don't see them reaching out to Richard Dolan or Grant Cameron or Dr. Michael Masters or Bob McGuire or anybody
Yeah.
like that. Why? Because they're not doing their homework. What they do is they say, okay, I need to get a fighter pilot. So let's go to David Fravor, Alex Dietrich, or Ryan Greaves.
Yeah.
I need to get a person who's worked on this. So there's Lou Elizondo or Sean Cahill. I need a politician. Well, Tim Burchett's a good quote. Let's get him. He'll fire it up. That's all we see.
Point
we
taken.
don't see the secondary part
Point
because
taken.
we don't know the secondary part.
Yeah.
So anybody can write an article, but if you want to get that in-depth conversation about what's truly going on, you have to dig deeper as a journalist to find that story.
Yeah.
They're not doing that anymore because it's infotainment.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think I hear everybody's point, and I like to tend to really, just come down to the people, right?
Mhm.
And for some reason, for me, I got this feeling that it's hard to think about the web of lies and connections and all of this stuff, right? Somehow it's connected over here. You get rumors this person is working for them and this person is there, and all of these different pieces that's just sitting out here. And it makes you wonder, though we are being fed something to the people, that's why I call them the big secret keepers. And that could be the religious institutions, that could be private contractors, the government, everybody. We can put whoever you want to put in that ball that's keeping the big secret. But it also looks like that it's a different, all these factions are trying to get to the punchline first. You get what I'm saying? It's like, okay, wait a minute, he's coming out with some, we need to come out with some. It's like they all knew the dates. What collaboration that all of this is happening, like, woo. And I know Tim mentioned earlier, okay, we're not really focusing on that. Let's just see what this is what disclosures look like. Is what disclosure look like the way they want us to see it? Or is it, Tim, just saying, are we still accepting it though, right? And like Dave said, all right, we're hearing all this, we see this, even though some of the information was profound yesterday, but for some of us, we're still saying, okay, that's fine. That's still, we're not going to get, it's like we playing cops, right? Y'all seen them, remember the show Cops?
Yeah.
And you watch the show, and I'm telling you, I used to watch every episode, and all I used to want to see one time, the one person that was coming out with the TV, and they got the cameras on him, and he says, okay, you got me. They all say the same thing the government said. It's not what you think. But yet they're catching on live TV with a crime, right? So here we go again. They're throwing the evidence right at them, and it's still not what we think, but you don't know who's working for who.
Right.
You don't know who truly has an agenda. So when we go back to the David Grush, or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Grush.
Particularly, they put on a screen right there and said the government gave him permission,
right,
to say the things that he was saying,
right, and there was some things he couldn't say.
Yeah, but it's like here's the narrative that you're going to tell the people.
Yes, yeah.
But then the media pumps it over. We got whistleblower, and he is just like, and the interviewer was like, the world is changing today. I mean, Stephen Greer just put out some stuff that blow his interview out the water, right?
Right.
I mean, it makes it like a mosquito hitting an elephant. You know what I'm saying? But yet, his stuff is all over every news, and what happened yesterday ain't everywhere today.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to disclosure, quote unquote. You're absolutely right. And I think that plays right into what you're talking about. The fact is that now we'll have the rebuttal to what he has. There'll always be somebody that comes out with the skeptical version of the story. And without evidence, it's going to be pretty easy to blow that stuff out of the water. And, the fact of the matter is a lot of whistleblower testimony is hearsay if it's not witness testimony. And that's why I felt that Stephen Greer brought witnesses. That's firsthand testimony. I feel that that weighs even heavier, perhaps, than whistleblower testimony in this case. But the fact of the matter is that, are we just being fed this for the reversal, like to continue to hide more secrets and more spending? Because all these programs are asking for more money to be spent, whether it's Stephen Greer or the his disclosure project, or what Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and his team are looking for. It's more spending on the topic. And so, is this more wasted money? Because that's what the public is crying out. Wasted money on programs that prove potentially nothing, because we're seeing Arrow absolutely fumbling the ball at this point with low-level security excuses and others. So when are they going to be held accountable? When is NASA going to be held accountable? So I think that we're just being set up again, potentially the same way we were 30 years ago, for this to just potentially die out when some bigger news hits the media or social media.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of these things that the witnesses said, and we'll do that. You was going to say something, Dave?
I just wanted to reiterate what Tim said. It's disclosure for dollars. NASA wants $100 million after a useless study, and not a single person asked NASA, "What's in your closet? Where are you hiding the tapes? Where's the audio?" You might think that study should have done that. Stephen Greer asking for $50 billion. The Galileo project with Avi Loeb, he wants $50 billion to $100 billion. Where's all this money coming from? And the weird part about it is, and I know you want to get into the Greer stuff, so I'll keep this quick. People listening, remember this. It doesn't matter whether it's NASA, the To the Stars Academy, the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, the Galileo Project, Dr. Stephen Greer, or any of the projects in between, like Enigma Labs that is being very silent, or anything. They all have one thing in common. They don't care about you, the experiencer. They want you out of the way. They want information out of the way.
Dave, well, yes. Go on. I wanted to jump in on that. No, finish.
I just want to quickly finish this.
I agree wholeheartedly.
They have taken their biggest supporters. Lou Elizondo once told me in a private conversation, the biggest mistake the To the Stars Academy did was they segregated themselves from the UFO public. And yet all they wanted was the UFO public's dollars. And that's why I believe we are in a confirmation movement, not a disclosure movement, because the government doesn't want to give up anything. All these groups want is money to fund their projects. Mm-hmm. And in the end, the UFO public, the experiencers, those of us who have had close encounters with UFOs and extraterrestrials, are literally getting screwed and being told, push out of the, get out of the way. Yeah. Dr. What's his name? Rich Hoffman, who was on my show, literally, and you can go back and watch it. It's in the third half hour of my show. And Tim refers to this quite often, where he basically said, I wish the experiencers would get the hell out of the way, because all you're doing with that tinfoil crap is making us look bad from the real work. Well, guess what? My stories, your stories, they affected us. We are owed an answer to what happened to us, and we need that answer. But nobody is going to support you. They just want the government money.
Yeah. Listen, this, for me, I do believe the Nietzsche quote that no lie lives forever. And, I think that the powers that be saw that this slow drip wasn't working, that they couldn't keep a lid on this, because one day someone's going to see this, use this, and they're going to see that not only will they take a picture of some technology, but one day they're going to see someone get in and out of this stuff, and you won't be able to explain it away. What this does is the military can still control the narrative. They change what they start changing nomenclature. UAPs. I still say UFOs. They start saying, so we're the experts. Get these experiences. We don't want to hear about, maybe, even though Greer talked about it today, we don't want to hear that maybe some of these beings are benevolent. Maybe there's a spiritual component to this. Maybe not. No, we are the experts. We will control this narrative. You get out of the way. And we, the experiencer, who a lot of us knew some of this stuff before this became public, a lot of us, we've experienced it. Some of these people, I mean, I think Greer is an experiencer, but a lot of these people aren't. But our voice, our narrative is being pushed away, and the government controls all of this, which is what they wanted to do in the first place. And then they can always say, you know what, we didn't know how to present it to you. We didn't, but we knew about this. And mark my words, we're going to be told that these beings, we're already being told, are a threat. Greer talked about it today. Werner von Braun said this to Sister Rosin back in the 70s when he was on his deathbed. He talked about the priorities. It was going to be Russia, and then it was going to be the Middle East terrorists, and then it was going to be a big rock, an asteroid was going to hit us. And the final card that would be played would be the extraterrestrial card. And Brother Braun said, with his Nazi past and all that, but he said, and it would all be based on a lie. And so far, we're living what he was talking about. I'm sorry, Dave, go on.
May I please add some fuel to your fire? Because you're doing awesome right now.
I need the fuel, brother. I'm tired. I'm old.
Did you know that about 4 months ago, the Canadian government, in their UFO study, the Department of National Defense came out and said there is no threat narrative in Canadian skies from UAP. Zero threat narrative. This is on record. Okay. And the talks that stopped between Canada and the United States was because the Canadian politicians stated they wanted to have their top scientists work on it when Chris Mellon walked away from the table because they would not take or accept a military threat narrative. There is no threat narrative of UFOs, not this UAP crap. The other thing that we have learned is there is no such thing as UAP. UAP are man-made objects that they are looking for. Chinese drones, balloons, Russian drones, balloons. That was all proven in February. They don't know about UFOs. They're keeping UFOs, hiding UFOs under the term UAP. And UAP are not a threat narrative, or pardon me, UFOs are not a threat narrative according to the Canadian government.
See, this is what I'm talking about. And again, we're not the only one, but Werner von Braun talked about it, and we're seeing it play out because we always got to have a threat, because we have to justify the money that we're asking from Congress. You got to have an enemy. And so we're going to be told that, well, we're already being told, but you know what disclosure is going to be? It's going to be, well, it's many things, but it's going to be our United States government, and maybe some governments around the world are going to say that, yes, they do exist, and you better watch out.
I got a question for y'all. And I'm on board with what everybody is saying. I just got a question. And this is just a primitive question. Why do we have car insurance?
I may not really have it, but no, I'm just joking.
But why should we have
an attorney?
To protect other drivers from you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what else? And basically, just in case you have a wreck, right?
Yes.
And that's the only kind of analogy I can think of. But wouldn't it be okay though to have, even though we don't want to say the UFOs are malevolent, they're benevolent.
Yes.
And of course, we know Dr. Greer was saying, look, guys, it's like we getting the message. Y'all fooling with us. Y'all need to stop this mess before we retaliate, right?
Right.
But then Lou Elizondo talked about the muddy booth, booth print, right? Theory of, locking your house down for the night and securing the family. You wake up in the morning, you see muddy boot prints, tracks going through the house, but yet the door is still locked, the alarm is still armed. What do you do? And I'm saying I'm okay with the fact that there are benevolent, but because now we're getting these books and you're getting, you got the reptilians and the you got the gray little, whatever, and then you got the Palladium. You got 80 species out here. It don't take but one of them with advanced technology who don't fall into the theory of the rest be nice to Earthlings, right? Shouldn't we be ready?
Right.
See.
You get what I'm saying? We know.
I hear that. I hear you.
You get what I'm saying?
But when a pickpocket sees a saint, all she sees are pockets.
Okay.
And so we see where this mindset has gotten us. It's like when I was in 12-step program for codependency. They would say, you know what? Your best thinking got you here. And so this is what's going on now. We see everyone as an enemy, everything as an enemy. And so look at the world that we have now because of that. So there's an old saying, if you want to keep on getting what you're getting, keep on doing what you're doing. And I'm not saying, you lock your doors, right? It keeps honest people honest. But that's still different from something I don't know, something I don't understand. I'm going to fire on it. That's a very different mindset. No one's saying that you shouldn't have protection, but everything is a threat. And so eventually, we're going to have a problem. Well, we already have problems. That's the different mindset. No one's saying you shouldn't have protection in your house. No one's saying you shouldn't. But everybody's a threat. Every country is a threat to my national interest. Everything is a threat. So I got to get more money. I got people here that can't eat. I got people here that can't even have health care. But that's okay. There's a threat. I need more money. That's got to stop.
Right.
But we giving it to them. We ain't nobody's. We the people ain't complaining about it, right? Well, we could be complaining, but they finding ways, and then of course now, maybe because of we should give it to them. I'm just talking out the side of this neck. Then would they be doing human trafficking if they had access to the purse? You get what I'm saying? It's almost like the consequences of our action or the collateral damage is they know they can't get the money for it openly. So we're going to do this under the table. And now it's still coming back to our doorsteps, right? And still making us come up missing and all of these things that we still don't have the power supposedly to correct. So it's just like I don't know. I don't know. Tim, what do you think?
Well, I think it's tough, to keep a discerning mind and have clarity on this topic when you've got people that are representing leadership on this topic, talking about this potentially having somber effects and using terms that are kind of threatening. That narrative can kind of roll itself into a bigger and bigger story. And at some point, it does translate into we need to spend more money, right? And that's what you guys are talking about here. And I think that it's important for countries like Canada to speak a little louder and show that there's really no evidence from UFO that there is any threat. And the things that we do have that are floating in our airspace are typically mundane UAP. And it can, phenomenon can include weather and things that can mess up the technology that we have on board our aircraft. So these are real things. And some of them may be balloons and some may be rockets and who knows what else. The discussion is now moving into these metal orbs, that are floating over airspace. That's UAP, stuff that we can put our heads around, and it can still show physics that are, unknown to us potentially in the public, but that's UAP. The stuff that you can't understand, that does things that is unexplainable, that's UFO. That's a totally different discussion. And I don't think until Dr. Greer really brought it to the table today, it's been discussed. Now, I know Grush has been pretty forward with some of his statements, but it's really hard to take something like that, a bold statement, without any kind of corroborating evidence. I think we want more. And I'm thinking that we'll get more. My expectations are kind of high now from this whistleblower. But Dr. Greer delivered witnesses, firsthand witnesses with stories. And I know that was our topic for tonight, Roderick. I'd love to swing you back there. But honestly, I found it really compelling. And anytime I'm getting some new information like human trafficking, that's a new one that, humans are using, ET technology for human trafficking. That's potentially news, that's big news. So that's where I'm at with it.
So let's and I'm just throwing this out here. All three of you, I've seen a UFO when I was 12 years old, but I haven't had the experience, but the experience is still my experience. We got countless of stories of people that have reported abductions, contact. We have less of those, if we wanted to try to think about it, than the ones who been abducted that hadn't been brought back. What would they say? Is they benevolent or malevolent? The kidnappers, not, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? How do we control that sentiment about these extraterrestrials when we know, or we're hearing, that people are being abducted? And then we got most cases. Space with David Pilates, who did a great documentary of, stuff missing 411, right? And then he finally ended up with the UFO connection. I know that's in your all's neck of woods, Dave, and so you can probably touch on that. But all I'm just trying to say is, although we could say because you all are survivors, right? I mean, you're survivors and you had the experience. They didn't take you away and not bring you back. But do we not have accounts of stories of missing people that they assume been abducted by aliens and not coming back against their will? So wouldn't that be malevolent or benevolent?
Well, I think it goes beyond benevolent or malevolent. I think it goes beyond. You have to go by each individual story. There was a story from 1980 in Vancouver Island here in British Columbia of a gentleman named Granger Taylor. He had a grade 8 education, but many people in the town of Duncan, British Columbia, called him the most brilliant citizen that there was, because literally this guy would rebuild trains, build airplanes, build cars, all from scratch. And he claimed that he was an ET contactee and that he was going to be taken one day. And he warned his parents when it was going to happen. He said he was going to be gone for 4 months. And then one day he was gone. And sometime later, his vehicle was found on one of the mountains, exploded. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police stated that it was suicide, even though there was no DNA of his body found. So did he get taken? And it's now been 40 years? We don't know, because we are, as far as we know, the only species that actually works on time.
And let me do this. I'm laughing because I'm looking at the comments and I got a few texts from my peeps of my pronunciation of some of those words. And so I forgot to give my disclaimers. Over here on the left it's a virtual letter box. I just want all of y'all to know. Over here is, in case you see a misspelling somewhere, you have full autonomy to go in here and pull out. It's unlimited letters. You could correct any of the spelling. Over here is my grammar box. If I mispronounce a word, which I do, you're welcome to go in there and pull it out to put it into your consciousness so it sounds right. But boy texted me, said, hey, let me give you how to say these words, and I appreciate it. Usually my show producer be like, hey, you got to pronounce this right. I saw it in a text. So y'all never mind me chopping it up that way, but just understand that you can probably see misspelled words and your brain will probably put it together. But I appreciate my support. And I texted him back. I was like, oh yeah, okay, let me bring it up. But and I have Ebonics. He gave it to me. He says, "But never you luck. You make sure you say that, brother. I got you." Hey, I appreciate you, my man. I appreciate you for texting me. And he says, "Get it right, get it right." And I love it. That's my peeps. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's move to the next part of this. Is okay. So one of the things I want to bring up is unity. Why do we have separation? And for example, here's something I found. This was on Twitter. It was David Grush saying to Stephen Greer, "Don't like keep your my mouth out of my bit, whatever." The Will Smith thing. Like, I'm gonna slap you. You know what I'm saying? Don't bring me into your circle. You know, and blah blah blah. And he said, "I request that Stephen Greer cease using my name to promote his personal agenda." But I thought everybody's agenda is disclosure. What is going on here?
I think, Brother Roderick, that may be a little naive. It's disclosure, as Dave was saying, as Brother Tim was saying, on what terms? On what terms? I mean, Brother Grush, obviously, and see, that's what, and this is my personal bias, and so I will own that. I don't trust people who say I'm retired from intelligence. To me, it's like saying I'm retired from the Cosa Nostra. You don't. That's something you don't retire from, especially if you have high clearances and what have you. Now, here, clearly, I'm glad, and I don't know, I'm glad we're even talking about Brother Grush, because all this stuff happened at the same time, the thing in Las Vegas, which we don't have to go into if you don't want, but about the police and having the cam and seeing some 10-foot extraterrestrials. But all this did happen like in a 72, 48-hour time period. But I think that when you really listen, Grush has his agenda, and obviously that agenda is shared by whoever he's working for, because they're telling him what he can and cannot say. So that is the definition of having an agenda. And even with Brother Greer, yes, he's asking for money. They're all always asking for money, but I guess it's the lesser of the two. With Greer, he's still, for his flaws that we all have, but he's still pushing the agenda for more transparency as an experiencer. Now, he's got the clout and what have you. I know he says he's an experiencer. I'm not going to sit up here. If someone says they are, I'm not going to say that they're not. But he's the most high profile experiencer with this kind of clout, higher than Travis or some other folk, Kathleen Martin. And so he has this power, this influence is a better word. And what he did today, we were talking before, it really moved the needle. He had testimony, which we still have time to get into. And he had not only testimony, but here's what I think we need to do. He's got people who are volunteering, from all, people practicing jurisprudence, people who are just volunteering, who have day jobs, how we can get some protection for these brothers and sisters who are whistleblowing. So, I mean, it's no small feat what he pulled off today.
Right, but how do you feel about the fact that we know that everything that he said was cleared by the DOD and approved? Excuse me.
Yeah.
And so that means is that potentially what he's saying isn't typically very high level secrecy. and maybe not even something that they're worried about because it's not in their parlance. There's a lot of stuff
it makes
that,
sense, Tim.
Yeah.
I think this, and this is just me being a bitter old man who's been doing this a while. I don't trust my government. Okay, I never trusted my government, and there are many reasons for that. I know how, I'm not, I stopped my first rodeo in that sense. We're the greatest country in the world, at least militarily. How do you stay that way? By keeping other people from being the greatest country in the world. So the thing is, I don't expect my government to ever come clean on this. But I think that we can get so jaded about that, or it's not enough, I need more, you're not transparent, that you miss the boat. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be, hey guys, we've been BSing you for 90 years and we're sorry, and that's never going to happen, because that's not how governments work. I don't care whether they're authoritarian or, they don't work that way. And I didn't go to Yale Political Science School to figure that out. But what I am saying is, because otherwise you're always going to be disappointed. But what I am saying, that for me, this has been the most transparency. Flawed vessels though they are. I'm talking about Brother Grush and Brother Greer. Flawed vessels. But they've put this out there now. What we do with it is going to be whatever we do with it. But we can't expect, I don't think, our governments to, it's always going to be, well, they said this, but there's still that. This I will take. And I also think in the UFO community, vague term, don't even know what it means, but we're so hungry for affirmation. Just throw me a bone. Just let me, I'm like that too. I know what happened to me that continues to happen, but it's nice to have it affirmed. But I don't hang my hat on it. I have people like you and other experiences that I can talk with. It's never going to be perfect, but you got to admit, this was pretty big.
It was pretty big,
man.
Y'all hold a thought. I got to get into the second half of what we're doing here.
Oh my God, yes. Sorry, I'm sorry, brother.
No. That's not what I meant.
My mouth.
What I meant is, I need to let the world know of one of the biggest events happening this year that's bigger than the Stephen Greer's event, okay? And it is the Forbidden Knowledge Conscience Award. Let me share some information with you all. Yeah, it's bigger. It's
all right.
It's a lot of people going to be coming together to give. Let me let Billy tell y'all about it.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards, the first annual event of its type. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. And guess what? It's time to give them their flowers while they're still alive. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person for this amazing level event. It's going to be above the Oscars, above the Grammys. And guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com. And the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And you want to be there in person because I'm going to be speaking. That's right, I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. If you want to come to a mini conference, this is the place to be, because I'm going to give you the knowledge that night, as well as performances. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. And you help vote by going to forbiddenknowledge.com. Go to the Conscious Awards link. You can text in a vote for who you want for any category, as well as if you're out of the country, you can use the web form ballot to still vote for anyone you think is worthy of being honored that night. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
All right. We
Wow.
definitely want to see each and every one of you there. In
Wow.
fact, I am up for a nomination. I've now been nominated in the TV host category, and just give you a quick background. Yep. And these are some of the things I've done this year. And last year, you got Open Minds with Regina Meredith on Gaia. Was featured with George Norrie on Gaia. And actually, I was on Coast to Coast as well, radio. And then, of course, Discovery Plus channel, hosting a TV show there, Forbidden Knowledge TV, and there's an 8-episode show I have there, as well as being part of the Black Knight satellite documentary, Roswell 75, also featured on Ancient Aliens. And then there's a couple of more shows I'm in that just got released this last about a month ago. It's on Amazon Prime. So definitely I want you to vote for Roderick, and easily done. Listen, just go to voteforroderick.com. and it'll bring you to the Forbidden Knowledge vote page. Just scroll wherever, see my name, check the box, put your name, vote. And I'm just saying, I want to win. I really want to win. And hopefully I bring enough value to win. And I'll see y'all at the Conscious Awards. And definitely, I will definitely hold up the trophy or whatever it is. And maybe it's a plaque, maybe it's a certificate, but judging how this man rolls, I'm sure it's going to be, something special. And I'll be like, I just want to thank, the aliens too, I want to thank everybody from the universe and, my fans, the Why the Big Secret fan, Forbidden Knowledge TV fans. And
Seanor.
Yeah, of course I'm a I want to thank God. You just go down the list, and then at the end, I'm going to just say, listen, I got a whistleblower outside. He can't tell you nothing, but it is a whistleblower. I do have one, and I need $5 billion to put the I don't know. I'm just joking, but not about the Forbidden Knowledge Awards. I need y'all vote for that and love it. And pretty much okay. So let's kind of move into and one more big announcement. And we got about 700-800 people in here, and so thank y'all for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share and comment here. Make sure y'all get Reverend Carter's book, and go check it out. And there is a link to his book in the description of the video already. So I put it there. Make sure you go to Spaced Out Radio. You can do that really soon. By the time we disconnect here, you can get ready to hop up over there because he's going to be gone here and doing his show in about another couple of hours. And so there's a link in the description that will take you straight over to the YouTube channel to watch him live. Tim, you guys can hear a lot of stuff about him, but go over to Spaced Out Radio. You will see the dynamic duo and trio. It's quadruple. There's a lot of people over there. They work it. So definitely check that out as well. And then for me, go to Why the Big Secret YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel. I do live streams throughout the week and upload videos. And there's a link in the description where you can find to the video as well. And so with that being said, the last part of the announcement is this. Anybody live in Ohio, Toledo area that's coming to Dallas, let me know. I got a puppy that I need to have transported, a miniature dog, from there to Dallas. My email address is contact@whythebigsecret.com, or you can go to whythebigsecret.com. We're trying to help and get a dog from there to here. Of course we know it's going to cost some gas, some food, and some money and all that good stuff. But if you're just not doing anything and you want to come to Dallas from that way, but it's in Toledo, Ohio, where they make the Jeep, and it's going to come toward Dallas area. So reach out to me. Let me know. All right. So here's the deal. I think for right now, we can all assume that people don't have enough information for what they want. I mean, we got disclosure, and like you say, people want more. And so let's go into a couple of things that was said, and let's start with this gentleman here. This is Colonel Donald Heckert, I'm sorry, and from the United States Air Force. Now, he was talking about how he was told to kind of, was it engage with a UFO, right, by the military? And see, I was in a documentary with Jeffrey Torres, where his father, and that's a documentary on Alien Endgame that's on the Discovery Channel, was ordered by our military to fire upon a UFO.
Mhm.
And so I get where Stephen Greer is talking about maybe we are the aggressors here at some point. But this guy's story, as he was telling it, and in just talking about the different encounters that he was having. Do any of y'all remember some of the things that he said?
Two times he had a brand new IR sensor on his high flying airplane, and he was up there on a routine mission without any armed escort, and all of a sudden they got a hit at about 80,000 feet, and he was at about 12,000 feet, and radar was telling him just to not worry about it. Well, all of a sudden, within 2 seconds, it was about 60 miles from him. So that's just like a drop in the sky, and at the same level. So it dropped down quite, 68,000 feet or so in 2 seconds, and we're, kind of in his circumference. So suddenly on his radar, and using his new IR sensor, he basically captured it on that sensor, which was on the belly of his ship, doing a Mach 1 inverted lift straight up, and captured it on his sensor, went back and debriefed, and no one wanted to know about it. And then a second time, he had a similar experience with the same sort of high frequency, bright white light. And he likened it to a nuclear, I believe, something along those lines.
Yes.
Super bright. And so 2 times he captured it with their highest developed IR sensor. And that was never released, and he was never properly debriefed, but he was told to never talk about it. So that was his story. Pretty intense. 2 times to encounter that in his experience as a high flyer. So
and during the Vietnam War. And what was even a little more interesting, it was over Laos, and we were not supposed to even be anywhere near Laos.
And that's why you never heard about it.
Yes. Yeah. We weren't supposed to be across the fence there.
Right.
All right. So let's go into this one. This guy, Stephen Dawkins, now his story is pretty typical when it comes down to losing, his wife and the family and ridicule, and of course he had some brain damage and things from different his story.
Explosion, he said,
from exposure, which is stuff that Dr. Gary Nolan was talking about at one point too.
Yes.
So what do y'all think? Anyone want to chime in on his story?
I think it was amazing for him to come out and describe how he got his car stopped, thinking that it was some sort of military light staring back at him. And we got out of the car, saw the UFO. It hit him with a plasma beam, and he was surrounded by plasma type light. Then his wife came out of the car, and the same thing happened there.
Yeah.
What was that?
No, I'm saying, Sorry. That was powerful.
And, I mean, you know what? I believe this guy.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I'll tell you why. If you watch his body action when he is telling his story, he's reliving that fear. He is completely reliving that fear. He didn't know what was going to happen to his wife. Obviously, it ended their relationship. And, that happens a lot with experiencers, because when something happens, you're all in. You're all in. And sometimes the spouse is the one who sacrifices. And the fact that he was, still carrying a security pass, didn't have many people to talk to. I really commended the guy for having the bravery to come out and tell his story.
Yeah.
And the weird thing was too, sorry to interrupt you, Rod.
No, go ahead.
The weird thing too about his story was a week before that experience, he had seen a large series of blocks in a triangular formation with plasma coming out of them a week before. And the people that were around him just said that it was part of the Raytheon development, one one of their programs. So he had just seen something incredible that he'd never seen before, just a week prior to this extreme experience with a smaller triangular shaped craft, which, by the way, he said when he touched it, it almost seemed to purr like a cat, and pixels seemed to jump off of it when he touched it, like it reacted to him. He had a great description of the second experience he had with something that he said wasn't ours.
Wow, that was pretty. I'm gonna show the next one here. Of course, we have Michael Herrera, and of course he got into the story of running into some other paramilitary, people out there in the jungle, and then of course ultimately discovering drugs, guns, and human trafficking. And one of the challenges in even the thought of all of this is the fact that we're talking about UFOs and the fact that he saw something hovering that was pretty big. Now, to say the least, that if there's something like that big flying around, trafficking drugs, guns, people, wouldn't we know it? Wouldn't our sensors pick that up and just see the frequency of this? Or are we still going to say the military or whoever's tracking this thing, say, oh, there's a UFO, we got a sighting, and right in plain sight, this thing is happening? Or would they have cloaking technology or something? And even though it's man-made or look man-made, and what distinction of that to be man-made, could it possibly been aliens and it just looked man-made? You get what I'm saying? You don't want to scare that they're taking people off planet. And although his story is his story and it looked man-made, but still man-made objects, couldn't we have tracked this thing?
Yeah, we should have been able to. And you bring up a great point. And, those 60,000 people or so missing a year. And it reminds me of
600,000.
600,000.
Yeah, it's over 500,000 people.
That's just the United States, by the way.
Reminds me of, I think it was a Twilight Zone called To Serve Man.
Yes.
Where it was actually a cookbook.
Yes.
A recipe to serve man. Well, I mean, that is a pretty, somber story, I guess, if you want to consider this as valid. If we're using that kind of technology to do something like this, potentially it would not be trackable on the current radar that we're using, especially considering the location where this event took place in Indonesia in 2009. There's probably not, there could be a zone there where they're able to do what they need to do without being tracked. Obviously, there's quite a lot of planning if there are all of these secret bases that are planted all over the planet that have remained clandestine to the public. So
someone would have to turn a blind eye to that.
This was a conspiracy. They'd have to get all those people to lie.
Wow.
There you go, Mike.
Perfect.
There it is.
Go ahead, Michael. That'll tie right into what you was about to say.
No, I was just going to say, for that, it seems that, as you're saying, if we have that kind of technology, surely you can track, but someone would just have to be able to just turn a blind eye to that.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty much now clear to us that this thing is bigger, much bigger than what we assume. Now, one of the things that stood out to me before we get to the next one was David Grush statement of interdimensional. Do y'all remember him saying that? And then, of course, now you get all this report of Antarctica. You get the report of Stephen Greer saying how they was using these devices that could control weather, causing, earthquakes that are hurting people, killing people, all of these things in the name of testing. But interdimensional, is it possible that there could also at the same time trying to reach a inner structure that they can't get to? Or, why are we trying to go penetrate and sending things into the earth? What's the purpose of that?
Yeah. You're bringing up Eric Hecker, the Raytheon controller from the South Pole in particular, that came out with the revealing information on a neutrino light array that were being put into ice shafts. and they were being used all through the 80s and 90s, and then supposedly the technology was too demanding of power, and they were using nuclear power to source it. And a treaty came out, I believe in 2000 or so, where no kind of power of that level is able to be used in that part of the world. And so this neutrino light array, when he was out there, when Eric Hecker was out at the South Pole location, I believe McMurdo is the station that he was at the South Pole. The neutrino light array was actually in full effect and being powered up and sourced by an unknown power source. And so he was putting forward the theory that there was an unknown use of power there, but it wasn't nuclear. So he was looking into that, and kind of unknown. But not only that, this neutrino light array would basically create a laser beam of green light that you can send signals at faster than light travel, and it can be aimed in any direction. And supposedly this would be in communication with our off-world space engineers and pilots of Earth origin. And so there's some pretty deep thinking into that concept. But when it's aimed inwards and aimed towards Earth, it can create earthquakes. And theoretically, this was an explanation for an earthquake created in New Zealand, which he implied somebody lost their job over.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing to really literally go through some of those things. And Dave, you good?
Yeah, I'm listening into Tim, and I'm just wanting to chime in on this just quickly here. I mean, it takes a lot for any of these experiencers with their whistleblower testimony to come out. These people are literally putting their entire reputations on the line for the public. And I am a very big proponent of that. And it's funny, just about 2 weeks ago, Tim and I were talking about and I was very vocal about it, that we needed names of these people. We needed names of the people who are coming out and going to be entering our field. We didn't know who they were, what they were about, what they stood for. And the fact that Dr. Stephen Greer brought out 6 people with names and with their experiences, I thought that was fantastic, because for so long we kept on hearing that we weren't going to get people. We weren't going to get their names. We weren't going to get their stories, but there's whistleblowers out there and they should tell their story. And these guys have. And they need to be commended because they are about to go through hell. And the UFO field is not a pretty field. They're going to try and be disassociated from the military side, from the skeptical side, and from those who are wanting the empirical proof side, even though there is no bloody proof to have that would make people happy. They're about to get raked over the coals. And we as a community, we got to protect that. We do.
I mean, I agree with you. I think the sugar honey iced tea just got real, and it's going to, even from Stephen Greer's assessment of all of these bases and hidden places and interests. In fact, that leads me to right here to DC Long, to his story, which was really real interesting because it really, surrounded around his father being a contractor and how they went to a location that looks just like a junkyard or something with trash everywhere, but then it had an elevator. What he said, it went down into the area, and now all of a sudden we're in an underground facility, meaning these places can be anywhere. And it's just weird to say, because there was a time that when I had my first job, long time ago, and I was young, and I had a top secret clearance or secret clearance when I was 19 years old, and that was only because at that time I was working for a contractor, Texas Instruments, and most people referred to them as making calculators and all that, but I worked in a project HARM is what it was called, and that was a missile project, for the government. And I was there when I was young, and it's pretty much, it's declassified now, but it was called HARM, high speed anti-radar missile, and that was a game changer back then. And you're talking back in 1990s or whatever, early 90s. And but where I'm going with this story is that, like he was saying, his father worked for these contractors, and they're ruthless, and how they ended up taking millions, taking his family's, his father's wealth. They wake up one morning, all of his data, which is same thing they done with, I think, with the guy with HARP, who built that machine HARP, or Aurora or whatever, that was supposed to help water and get water in places of need where it wasn't raining, and the military found a way to weaponize it and say, we got it. And it's ridiculous when you think about it, because at that time, I didn't work on the actual missiles, but I was in what we call a plant, and they would have these big, huge corporate meetings, and then my job was to go and sit in the meetings and just sit there. And when they were sitting up there talking, I would just look at someone and just kind of giggle and say, boy, that'd be worth a lot of money. And you better not bite. You better not joke. If you had to say anything like, yeah, man, it would, wouldn't it? I got to turn you in, and you getting walked out tomorrow or right afterwards, because they don't want to do that. And we used to check people's credit. If anybody behind on their car notes, they either better get it right or they out of there. Because one of the things what people didn't know is that these organized entities, spies and all that, one thing they have access to nationally is the credit bureau. They can look up everybody. And if they see you in debt $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 while you praying, and somebody walks up and say, I got 30, you like, oh, this is from God. Yeah, but you finna give up some information. So they're checking all these things, but it doesn't also how ruthless that they are, because they was walking people out for every little thing. They was losing their jobs, and just because the government or whoever, the contractor I work with, was like, nah, they're vulnerable. But now you look on the other side, the contractors have ruthless power, power to alter your lives like that, and just like the guy when the jungle was saying, they told him, we can make you disappear right now. And it's like, well, look, dude, I'm with the United States military, so we can make you disappear. They know I'm here, so it's like, we don't care. We can make you disappear. And so now when you think about this guy's story, where he talks about, and he was about tearing up, where his father just lost his being, behind this, but still respected the fact that don't bring this name up. It's too dangerous, even in our conversations, where he disconnected himself from his family, all for the big secret. What do y'all think about that? The power of this cabal type stuff is huge.
Yeah. It's a government, like the senator from Hawaii was saying. It's a government within a government, on Air Force, on military, on and they are accountable to no one.
Yeah. All right. So I know, Dave, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to be ending here anyway in about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Tim, do you need to go with him, or are you good with me and Michael for another 10 minutes or what?
Oh yeah, I'll stick around with you guys.
All right, Dave, I know you got to go prepare for your show.
I apologize, but thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rev. It was good to see you again.
Always, brother. Always.
All right. So Dave Scott, everyone. Well, I'm going to give you one of our, songs to kind of, take you, on a journey here. And, it's just for you. It's for you. Let me find it here. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's for Dave, y'all.
To everyone tuning in, let me ask you, why the big secret concealing it from the mass view? UFOs circled in the sky, still get no reply. I think it's time for truth seekers to rise. Hands up if you're feeling how I'm feeling. Spread the truth and start revealing. Knocking down the doors of the big secret keepers. Truth seekers coming through your speakers. What?
All right, Dave, that's for you. I appreciate you coming out, man. There you go.
That was
All right.
nice.
That's
Yeah,
called
that
outro music.
That was
hey
nice.
man, that was for Dave. That was for Dave. That was for Dave.
Nice. Very nice.
All right. So here we are. We are at the point to, just get into a little closing facts of things. And one of the things was this RICO Act. And I thought it was I'm not saying clever to do it that way. I'm sure, because I heard he's been talking about this quite some time. But the crimes that he's saying we're willing to go after these people for, and I have a list of them: treason against the United States. Okay, so we got something against the people, we the people. Murder, mass murder, torture, kidnapping and abduction, embezzlement of government funds, embezzlement of private funds, bank fraud, money laundering, illegal surveillance, insubordination and insurrection against the United States. We know what's going on with that one, at some point. False imprisonment, witness and whistleblower intimidation, theft of intellectual property, trespassing, burglary, framing of innocent people, government corruption, blackmail, bribery, illegal use of government and military property, and more. He's saying this is the RICO Act. This is what Stephen Greer is saying. Him and about 100 lawyers, they're growing or getting together to say, listen, let's go after this. Now, Billy Carson of this channel, Forbidden Knowledge, I heard his voice. He was there present in the event. And he asked the question was, can some of these people really go to jail? Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. And the answer that Greer gave him kind of threw me, because he's like, yeah, but we're not really trying to push that button. Did you remember how you kind of like, well, we're not trying to send them to jail. We're just trying to get their attention to reveal. But why? So if they're not going to be afraid of the threat, you know what I'm saying? If they know we're not trying to go all the way.
He said,
I misunderstood that. I don't know. Yeah,
he said an eye for an eye. He quoted Gandhi, an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. I'm of two minds of that. The first mind is, well, can you really do that? I mean, it's nice, and we all want what justice or whatever that means to each individual, but is that really possible? The second thing is, I feel, and I don't know, I feel that because if someone knows that, like they were doing with Putin, well, if you go here, we're going to get you for war crimes, and so then when you tell somebody that, they can just go all out because I got nothing to lose now. I think something like what South Africa did, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, I think that we need something like that. It's painful. People have lost their lives, loved ones, that kind of thing. But I don't know if just threatening, and because they're going up against a big apparatus, they can say that and it sounds good, but is that really possible? I don't know if it is. But what I think is possible is that if we could get a committee, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, where we can leverage some things and move this thing forward. It worked in South Africa for a while after Mandela. I think that something like that, I mean, my goodness, we could use that for more terrestrial social issues that we have in the country. But that's where I'm thinking. I don't know if what they were saying is really possible.
Tim?
Reverend Carter, I love that option. That is a fantastic option. I've never even heard anyone consider truth and reconciliation in this. It makes so much sense. I know that they are acquiring more attorneys to push the RICO Act for all of these litigations potentially. And the problem with that is that once you start that ball rolling, there's only one outcome: you win or lose, right? And so you can always withdraw, I suppose, is a third option, but that really doesn't seem viable here. But I know going into something like this, okay, so if they didn't have attorneys involved or this RICO Act idea, there would be nothing actionable from anything that Dr. Greer has put together.
Yeah.
So this is an
Good point.
actionable item on his program that you
Good
can
point.
start on right away. And so usually when you're looking for support, whether it's financial or people to come on board, you need actionable items. And so this is absolutely a great way to get the ball rolling. And I like that you are thinking on your feet. And if you're in this group, that would be a great option. And I wonder if it's been considered. But I also want to impress that my interpretation is also that this could be why big media hasn't wanted to touch this with a 10-foot pole, because once you're talking about litigation, a class action suit, people versus the USG, that's dangerous grounds for a newspaper to get involved with, especially the New York Times or Washington
Yes.
Post or something.
Yes.
So if anyone has read any of the foundation of either of the programs that we're seeing, whether it's coming from Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon's team or the team coming from Greer, their actionable items are what is going to be looked at and determining how this program is revealed to the public, how it's interpreted by the public, how the media reveals it, and how they get involved, right? It's a very interesting, and you have to know that there are major people placed carefully in big media that only let certain stories happen, the editor of the editor, if you will. So obviously that's kind of big words, and so that you may see Dr. Greer backing off slightly simply because it I don't think it's hurt the program being publicized, but potentially it's limiting them as to where they can go as an outcome. They need to be very flexible with their program. I like your thinking because it gives them an alternative. And what they're currently doing is they're giving a time frame for people that are whistleblowers, saying that, we're going to give you X amount of days to come forward. Otherwise, we may come after you and apply pressure for you to come forward, subpoenas and such. And also, and that's to get whistleblowers to come out. It's actionable items that is kind of dangerous grounds. So I do feel that perhaps is part of the perspective that the media is considering before they put it in their papers.
The boy who cried wolf. We know the story, and we can't do that. I mean, I think it's at the end of the day, we need to, but okay, let me back up for a minute. Although Dave and you all was talking about all roads lead down to the money, right? And, and if I had to say it again, I'll say it again. All roads lead down to the money.
You damn right, wise ass.
So having said that, why ask for the support when you're not going to go the distance?
Well, we don't know that he won't, but he's going to need the support either way. Remember what Dave was saying, that, Greer put this out and he's not putting these nefarious groups with Greer, but they're all asking for money to fund. And so no matter what happens, you want to have the funds.
Right.
Speaking of funds, make sure if you want to support the channel, send your super chats right up. We had a couple of people today that sent some chats right over. And matter of fact, I missed a couple. So there we go. We have Ivan says, what about the works of Marshall Vine Summers and the Allies of Humanity briefings? Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Okay. You want to touch on that real quick?
Well, I can tell you what I know. I have two of his books sitting over here. I started reading his stuff several years ago. I don't agree with everything that he's saying. And at the time, I thought it was a little too fear-based for me. But what a difference 2 or 3 years makes. He was making the point that you were trying to make earlier, Roderick, that we need to be prepared, that yes, some of these beings are benevolent, but and the Allies of Humanity are a group of star people who have had experience with other beings who did not want to come and sing Kumbaya or John Lennon's Imagine. And they were saying that, and I'm trying to put a lot into a little bit, that basically our planet is a jewel, that we have resources, and that we may expect if someone wanted to take over the planet, it wouldn't be maybe violently, it would be by trying to say, well, we're spiritual beings, or we're really benevolent, and they would use more subterfuge and more clandestine ways to take over the planet because they want our resources. And these allies are talking to this brother Marshall, and giving him information about how we need to be prepared for that, that everyone who is out there is not our friends, whether they've overtly been hostile or not. And they do stress what you were saying, that a good defense is a good not well. I'm not even going to use that. Just that we need to be more vigilant and not just accept that everyone has our highest good because they have technology or because they come off as deeply spiritual.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's got to be tricky for the others to have us speaking for them, right? Or coming up with theories. I wish that there was more clarity, so there wasn't so much guesswork.
Yes,
Well,
but
keep
that's
guessing,
the
though,
nature that's the nature of this phenomenon.
Right.
There's more questions than answers, and so you have to learn to live with mystery.
Right, but
But
don't you
also,
feel that, like, when Gary
everybody's-
Nolan comes out with it's 100% here, and then we have a whistleblower saying that we have craft and we have bodies, and then we have whistleblowers and firsthand witnesses coming forth with some stories that are benevolent and some that are definitely malevolent. But we're seeing the malevolent side coming from the human beings. We're seeing really no information coming from the others. Right? It's very neutral from what I can see. And our interpretation is that, oh, it might be scary or it might be this. But if you look at it, it's really, they're not doing anything. They're kind of existing right under our noses and not really hurting us at all. I mean, people that have been taken perhaps may not agree with that, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
And so I was just very curious as to what is your take on the interpretation? Like, at what point do we draw a conclusion without them ever speaking for themselves?
I think Dave hit it on the head, that it's each individual encounter. And look what Whitley talks about, and even when Bud Hopkins was alive, Bud was shifting a bit. He wasn't going all the way to what John Mack was talking about, but after some distance, he started to see how his life. Talking about Whitley, he was starting to see how his life had changed for the better. That, of course, there was the trauma. I mean, I still have post-traumatic stress when I'm here by myself, when my wife has to go out of town or whatever. I have a hard time being by myself here because I know, it's just post-traumatic stuff. But for me, I had scary moments. They did something that hurt me at one time, but when I asked them not to do it, they listened. So, and my life has changed for the better. I just told you about the stress I had, and I've been the therapist and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't exchange it. It changed me for the better. But you have someone, when we got together with Bud's group, there were people who had sperm and ovum taken, and there was nothing you could say to make them say, well, there was no spiritual transformation for me. Michael, what are you kidding me? And that's just as real as what I went through. One of the reasons I wrote my books and came out of the closet, if you will, about this is that I didn't like I wanted there to be another narrative, that it wasn't just all bad. It wasn't just all, because we do that with each other, these kind of stereotypes. I don't know with Brother Greer. I don't know if I say all these species mean us well. But I do know from my experience that the ones I've run into, and I've seen 3 or 4 different species, they did me no harm. And that's all you can do because there's no formula.
Okay, so all right, let's do this then. Let's think about and it just be thinking, about what you all were saying, but who or what happened to the people that built the pyramids and all these civilizations that just came up, gone, missing from our past, and we don't know. They're not here on the planet. No remnants of them is here except for the structures that was left behind. What did some nice people come out and say, we just come and give y'all a ride to La La Line? Y'all want to go? You know what I'm saying? Or,
Roderick, the secrets are definitely in the stars on that one.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? So,
no,
it's
I hear you. I hear you. But if we knew the answer to that, we could split the Nobel money. That's
Right.
the mystery there. Greater minds than ours can't even come up with that. But we know something happened.
I have a question that's pretty topical. Why is this current push on disclosure any different than what Greer did at the time 20 years ago? And why is there going to be more of an impact? And how is it not just going to get pushed to the side again this time?
I think we're looking at the timing, and maybe because we hadn't discussed this yet, but we can go ahead and get into it. Greer is putting a timeline on something else on the horizon if we don't get our acts together, or 20. Remember, he said 2024, 2026, or whatever. That and by the end of this year, this needs to be done to rein in the powerful people that the government can't even control, so to speak, and they're going to do something stupid like poke the bear, right? So maybe he's getting information of saying, somebody is saying, hey, if y'all don't, I'm just letting you know, because you got to think about linear time, right? We as humans live, 80, 90 years old, or if we're lucky, and these extraterrestrials live in a thousands of years, supposedly, right? Their timeline supposedly is different. So if an extraterrestrial say, hey man, in about 100 years, I'm going to spank y'all if y'all keep doing this to us. Now, of course, if they wanted to retaliate, they could have done it when we had bow and arrows and muskets. You know what I'm saying? Why now, when our weaponry is just twofold, it's getting bigger? But that goes back to your question. Why now, or what difference would it make? But I think he's been talking about this thing coming for quite some time, but now it's like it's up on us now, and someone is saying that, hey, if you keep shooting us down, we're going to have this problem. So maybe I was interpreting it wrong, but it just made me say, okay, what? I got to get my ray gun. What do I got to do? Be ready? Because I don't see that the big secret keepers are going to get in line with the agenda that he's speaking. That ain't happening, and that ain't happening because some of these people got bunkers and whatever they're preparing. Like I said earlier, why did Jay-Z, not earlier today, but weeks ago, why did Jay-Z and Beyonce, who buys immaculate houses and cars, they go buy the ugliest place in the world, but it's a bunker.
Right. We couldn't even push.
They know what
I heard it different. Roderick, I heard it a little different. I thought that Greer was talking about the government. The other people in the government are saying, if this is true, then we've got to make some changes in the next couple of years. I don't know, and maybe I heard it wrong, but I think there's also another thing, and I don't know if it's true. Grush's. It was almost to me like the government was coming out in front of Greer.
Remember, I said that earlier in the conversation that it looked like they was all trying to beat each other to a punch. Yeah.
So the thing is this: Grush's whistleblowing helped Greer, and I think a little bit vice versa. I don't know if it was planned; it could have been coordinated. The thing is, though, what is 20 years difference? And the thing is that the people are more open to it now than what Greer talked about 20 years ago. He's got he actually had more whistleblowers back in May, but he didn't have the audience, 20 years ago, but he didn't have the audience he has now. And again, we don't know if it was coordinated or not, but just 48 hours before that, or even less, Grush comes out with what he was saying. So it's kind of like a 1-2 punch. I kind of think it was coordinated myself, especially along with the people, but I can't prove that, the thing that happened in Vegas. But 20
Oh,
years
really?
makes
The
a
Vegas
difference.
little boy in the backyard?
Listen, I mean, all of a sudden, all these three things happen. It usually stuff like this happen. I remember when I was living in New York when 9/11, and then we had the Patriot Act thing, and it usually always comes out on a Friday. It's like these big events come out on a weekend, and it gives them time to strategize, and the average person is just like, what just happened? And you got those 3 days. I don't know. It's just weird how these things come out on a weekend. But I don't think you could have. I think with Grush and with Greer being that close together, I think that, and then again the thing in Vegas, the setup with the balloons. I think they're all somehow linked to see what our reaction is going to be. I mean, the weather balloons a couple months ago, we had that back in we had that back in Roswell. And so we got the tic tac thing going on. Well, we have historical amnesia. We had the similar thing back in World War II with the Foo Fighters. A lot of this strategy isn't new. It's just that sometimes we have historical amnesia. And again, it's like, well, how's the public going to react? How's the public going to react?
And what if Congress is being informed on all of the information from Grush and Greer and all of the whistleblowers that are coming forward, but they're basing all of it potentially, and I'm wondering, on hearsay and stories? And where's the evidence? I'm saying that if the public and Congress are being shown the same things, it's all hearsay at this point. And so what is Congress to do with that information if we're applying pressure on Aero and NASA and all of these organizations to come up with an answer, a conclusion, and to take action on something? What kind of expectations should we have when it comes to this realistically, with so much information and so much pushback coming from USG and DOD in particular?
Well, yeah. The thing is, though, whatever information we're going to get, you can believe we won't be getting all of it. They'll be classified in what they're going to release to us. So, like you were saying, Tim, this hasn't even been a week old yet, either of these stories. We just have to stay tuned and see how it plays out.
Right.
All right. With that being said, guys, I'm going to let you all get on to your lives, and then I'll do some final remarks here for the people that's watching. But Michael, I appreciate you really spending the time here as well. And
anytime.
Anything you got coming up now that people need to know about? But outside of that, I got you.
Yeah. And I'm going back to Lake Houghton, Michigan, September 22nd to 24th for their Michigan UFO Con. And that's about it that I know of.
All right. What about you, Tim?
I've got all kinds of excursions planned for my group of researchers. We're going to be all over the place this summer, digging out data, getting up close and personal to UFOs, and hopefully bringing evidence.
All right, then. All right. Well, I appreciate both of you. And we're going to stay on top of this. If we just need new stuff coming out, we're going to keep expanding these panels for the next few weeks. And really, I got Paul Wallace is going to be here on the 27th. And so we're going to be doing some deep dive in some things that he has going on and everything else. So, but anyway, I appreciate you all being here, and take care.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Take care, Tim.
All right. So now we have it, Truth Seekers, where we are, and you just heard some great conversations with some great people. And I think once again, let me make another announcement. If you voted for me in the past, you got to vote again. So you got to know you got to vote twice, basically. And so go back to voteforroderick.com. The first part was to be getting the nomination, and now in the nomination, you got to vote for the winners. And we don't have a few weeks left before they close out the voting. And so definitely go to the Forbidden Knowledge or go for, Forbidden Knowledge. You can kind of see there, or go for, voteforroderick.com, and you will be able to see some things there. Also, just real quickly, we have been working on Project Black, so the Black League of Alien Contact Knowledge, and starting the conversation. And this is huge because one thing's for certain, I do know in my community that a lot of people wasn't watching this disclosure thing that was happening in a majority fashion, that Stephen Greer. And so therefore, there's still going to be a disconnect, disproportionately representation stories. But it is time that we need to cultivate those stories. So if you're listening to me, you got a story, and you may not want to come on air, that's fine. But if you go to whythebigsecret.com, and there is a form there, or Project Black, you can submit some information. And I, when we do our live shows on our channel, then I would just read them out. But we need some help. We're about to really start this conversation because it's already moved over here. It's going to have to filter down into the indigenous and the African-American communities. And this is for everybody, though. This is for the collective of everyone to begin to get this out, because it is a whole different story. All right. And if this stuff is happening now, some people could be in fear of hearing these headlines and not understanding what's happening. And we can help a lot of people in these communities. And so if you guys are going to back me up with that, that's fine. And if you want to help support that, once again, go to the website. You can volunteer. We're going to we need to get more stories. So if you know some people that looks like me, so to speak, or whatever, that has stories or want to tell their grandparents, uncles, cousins, it's time. I got to bring them forward. We got to bring them, not just to be part of the whistleblowers thing, but it is going to be some cultural things that we need to bring up, especially when it comes down to religion and a lot of the stuff that keeps this a taboo subject when it comes down to our community. And hopefully you feel and understand exactly what I'm saying and don't discount that, because a lot of you watching it probably been contacted, sleep paralysis, all these things, and you probably still want answers and questions. And there's people out there that probably had experiences, their uncles or the grandmothers, and just stories that's sitting out there that we can get some things come forward and get people to come so that we can prepare our communities for what is going to happen. Because as this disclosure rolls out, there's going to be a lot of people mentally cannot handle what is happening. I'm telling you, I don't care how you look at it, there's going to be a portion of people that cannot handle this. And I know some people, are you're listening, you feel what I'm saying, and it's not a racist thing. It's not. This is all of us as a collective. But once again, let's just put the magnifying glass on this particular area that is disproportionately represented and these stories. And so we got to create that place where people who will see other people coming forward. So even on this show, more people we can have. And so, but we invite all stories. And I hate that I have to keep saying it that way, because there are some people going to take it the wrong way. But just as Michael said earlier, just as all the stories, prove me wrong. Go look at all the documentaries and you give me 10 stories that happen in our community. 10, and don't use the Betty and Boynton Hill. That's a 50-50 and that's been out forever. Find me 10 stories, 10 movies, 10 books, 10 a lot of stuff that we can come up with, and maybe 20, and 10 is not nothing compared to the thousands that we've heard other places and things and what you see. Look at it right now. And so I know that we had Black people in the military who was on the same boats, who was on the same ships, who saw the same thing right next to their comrades or whatever. And they're actually experiencing probably PTSD, all the same stuff, mental health issues, just like everybody else. But but it's done different in our community and spirituality or religions, I would say. So, and we know this. We know that it is seen, and this thing is done different when it gets down into our communities. And so this is what it is. Once again, Project Black is an acronym for the Black League of Alien Contact Knowledge. And I'm not going to give a lesson of what league meaning a group of people coming together. And let's talk about this. And so If you want to be part of that, if you understand where I'm coming from, make sure you subscribe over to the Why the Big Secret YouTube channel. We're putting it out there. We're going to have some interviews. We're trying to get our celebrities. We're trying to get athletes, people of influence to just start the conversation in our communities. We got to just simply start the conversation. They're already doing it on a big level. They're already trying to desensitize people right now by making this kind of in the headlines constantly to where people are like, but that's not happening. That's not filtering down on K104 radio station that I listen to every now and then here in my community and some of the other stations, Steve Harvey shows and all that. It's not coming up in conversation. And I'm not saying, oh yeah, we saw something in Vegas. We're talking about the real deal that, that could be biblical in sense and could be a whole lot of things and disturb some people mentally. And so I know I'm not preaching to the choir, but if y'all understand what I'm saying, and if I see someone saying I need to talk to you, Roderick, great. Reach out, to me, contact at Why the Big Secret. There's a contact form. You can put your number and email. Please, I put a telephone number. If you reach out to me, I'm going to call you. I'm going to pick up the phone and call and say, hi, this is Roderick. Let's talk. The emails, and if you want to hide behind those, that's fine. But just like you seeing on national TV, we can't validate. If I can't validate at least your story, I don't have to put you out there, but you're going to have to trust the fact that I need to validate who I'm talking to. And that is just a conversation to understand, because just like you said, there's a lot of stuff out there and everything else. And I know it's hard to talk about. This Factory Polo's right here saying right now, he's saying, let me go back. He says, brother, it's hard to talk about, but they make you feel like they're also giving you a gift. So, the point I'm saying is, it is Stephen right here. I'm just bringing up some comments. I'm glad that some of y'all are understanding where we are. I hope Black people can resolve this, because white people sure as hell can't. And I get what you're trying to say. And let me give you one of these things to say that's not what we're talking about here. And I'm not saying that we're going to solve it. We're just going to give somebody a place to talk, a place that they can see other people and have a conversation. None of us is going to solve it. Yeah, but we got some people that can help people deal with it. And that's the inch that we're trying to accomplish here. And hopefully y'all understand that. And I'm not saying that everybody doesn't, but I know that there's people out there, just because I call it Project Black, is going to assume that they're not included, it's excluded. No, I'm just saying that there is, and I'm not making this up. I've been in 12 TV shows, and we've been doing history on books and stuff. And even when they talk about Project Blue Book and everything else, and you hear it, Stephen Greer, and it talks about it's one of the biggest things in UFO history. But at the time, it was a joke, right? UFO stuff was joke back in the 50s. But did you know that we have the Red Tails? Okay, we have the Red Tails, who was the African-American fighter group, who was one of the best out there. But one of those guys that stayed with the Air Force for 30 years, his name is Colonel Friend. Look him up. He ran Project Blue Book back from 1958 to 1963. Now, this is 5 years of the most coveted part of ufology ever in the history of the United States, but you will never hear his story, but you can Google it, it'll pop up. But yeah, okay, back in that time, you're going to have that because it was seen as a joke. So if they're going to ruin someone's career, let's just give it to these people because the other people didn't want to touch it. Right after him was Quintanilla, who was a Hispanic minority. So you're not hearing these in the communities. And I'm not saying that they're heroes, but the fact that their families and lineage and all that, they got some stories. They have some stories, but we don't see them in the documentaries. We don't see them in the movies. We don't see it in the books. We can't read it in the book, but yet it's still covenant in our history of understanding this. And it makes me passionate about it because sometimes it's a lonely island out here because we're not seeing that that we belong in this particular, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I get it all the time. I get it all the time. And so now when the first time I say, okay, let me not try to collectively put something together, you can get some opposition. And so not to compare it to what Dr. Greer and I'm doing, nothing compared to that. I just want to hit the ground level to where I know there's people in my community suffering from some mental stuff when it comes down to this, and they're feeling fear, ridicule. But I know we got bigger problems to worry about, so it's up, it falls down under here. But I promise you, it will help us all as we're gaining and gathering a better understanding of what's happening and what is happening in this community. So once again, subscribe to Why the Big Secret. There's a link down here. We're going to be covering these stories. We're going to do some panels. We're trying to get more people in community. I've been out there. I got video clips and I'm on the streets talking to people, all of this stuff. And I'll start uploading these things and getting the sentiment and getting the temperature of the community, and really want to prepare, because if an extraterrestrial showed up tomorrow, I grew up Christian. I know the aftermath of that thought if something was to happen and we're not prepared. And then just the thought of that God could have created more than just us, right? But we're not taught that. We're not, it's just a little more, and I'm just using that as a statement to say, because I believe beyond that now. But the whole point is, there's still people need to understand, okay, well, let's just try to keep it somewhere bottled where you can still understand it, that there's a lot of things out there. So if y'all are with me, let me know. Put in the chat who's with me, who is with understanding where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this. And I just need to know. Put it in the chat. I'll bring it up, because once again, I know this is something that needs to happen and everything else. And it's going to be epic. We can get around talking, put some people on stage. But like I said, if we got 10 people in our community sitting up on stage, the same as you see some of these other events, and they're all personally telling some of their stories, I promise you, we're going to get more stories coming out. Me too. This happened to me, or yeah, I experienced this, and blah, 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 and blah. Okay. Nicole says, hey, I'm with you. I appreciate it. Factory says, I'm with you. I appreciate it. Lynn says, I'm with you. Fighty Life says, I'm with you. Polo says, I'm with you. And that makes me feel comfortable, even myself, stepping out on the ledge of not just talking about it, but let's corral it. Let's research it. Let's make the phone calls. And like I said, we got military people who dealing with the same stuff. They're out there. And they was pilots. Yeah, they was probably pilots too. They was on those Navy ships too. And I promise you ain't hearing the stories. I know you're not. And you can't find it. You ain't seeing it in the press. And just don't think that they wasn't sitting there, right, holding the arms, protecting the country just like the rest of them. And I'm saying they're all in this together, but it's a little different for us to come out. I have some old people saying, I'm with you. All right, grassroots moving. All right, go to Steve Harvey. I wish I could. I would love to. And I would love for all of us to work together, because I'm sure if you are not Black, you got friends that are Black. That's true, man. And everything else. So, yeah, I would love to go and talk with him and all that, because it's in the news. They know what's happening, and they have to know what's happening, and pretty much. But yet, it could be the biggest joke over here. And that's okay. We can bring a little humor in it. All right, that's fine. But we're not going to make fun of you. We just may laugh with you so that you can be more comfortable of something that they're already trying to make comfortable. But I'm telling you, it's not filtering down into the communities. I promise you, you go somewhere tomorrow, you go over into the neighborhoods in the community and say, hey, did you hear about Stephen Greer? They're like, what are you talking about? Did you hear about their human trafficking probably? Yeah, we'll hear that, but they'll go with more of the sex side, right? Or did you hear about the other military people coming forward? No, but my uncle was in the military. He served in the Vietnam War. He served in that. Yeah, he said he know the Foo Fighters or all of that. It's there. It's there. It's there. So I don't mind being out front, taking the arrows of it and the laughter and everything else, because they can find many things that they want to talk about me about. That's fine. That's okay. Hey, okay, this, whatever. But I do know, because I've been in it, and it's not many of certified African-American UFO investigators like myself who is seeing it and experiencing it on a whole different level. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And let me give you a quick history lesson before I go. So do your research. UFO reporting agency started in 1970, 69. That would be MUFON, the place that I'm with, which is the Mutual UFO Network. They're probably in the 1970s, 60s, 69. And before then, you're going to have the local sheriff departments with ones who will pick up the phone and say that. You tell me at the time when we have people was getting probably, kidnapped, lynched, KKK, you got all these things that was happening. And then you already know if you wasn't black, they was treating you bad for UFO stuff anyway, right? You didn't have to be black for that. They didn't care. You were crazy. So take that and move it down a notch and then say, where would we have called? What stories? Who would have told if it happened in our communities that it was an abduction or that I saw a UFO last night? No one, because you're not going to hear it. Nobody, the wife ain't going to let the husband go walk 2 miles down there and say, hey, you're going to go talk about a UFO. You need to go out here and catch some dinner or whatever. It wasn't being reported. It's not being, I'm not saying it wasn't happening. It was happening. It just wasn't being reported. So let's get those stories. Daryl Nichols says, I'm on board with you. Yep, Daryl, y'all know him and his story here. He's part of Project Black and what we're doing. I appreciate it. And like I said, if you're listening to me, it's 500, 600 people sitting here. Go. If you're not, you're going to get more of this. If you want more and want to participate, send me an email. What you can go to contact at Why the Big Secret. Go to whythebigsecret.com. You go to the website. You'll see the hats and you'll see the Project Black merch and stuff that we're promoting to do. I'm just going to hold it up. I guess some shameless plugs here, but there's a shirt. There's a history behind the fact that alien is not gray. He's brown skinned. There's a history why that alien has a third eye. There's a history about where the Egyptian colors and all that come into play. It was all thought out. And you can find some of that content right here because it's inspired by what I read and learn from here from Forbidden Knowledge on Billy's videos as well. But anyway, those shirts and different things could support. You can go to the website and order them. We got them all the way up to 6X. Why? Because I got to make sure I can wear a shirt too. And so I want to take care of all our fluffy people like myself. Well, I'm getting a little smaller now. But the whole point is, if you're with me, please go, and I'm going to get ready to get out of here. Subscribe over to Why the Big Secret as well. And Tuesday night, we're going to have some more panels here. We're going to bring more people here as well. And it's time for us to really make sure that this thing filters down into the crevices of the communities. And so people are not caught off guard when something happens or things that, that they're talking about. And so I'm all down for the program. Okay. And so we'll definitely do that as well. And pretty much. So with that being said, somebody said, or tell Steve Harvey. I know he said that, but I don't know. I would just, y'all can get with Lonnie. She helped produce the show. She is the producer. I'm sorry. And we both, we got researchers. We're ready. We're ready to take the information and bring it as well and doing it. And this is something I planned 6-7 months ago before all of this, because I kept saying we're going to have to really get ready to put some stuff out there and really put some things into effect. And we're going to do that. So with that being said, all right, it's been a plum pleasing pleasure. It was a privilege tonight serving you. And I hope that as where we're going right now will allow you to understand that nothing will be as it was ever again, because it's happening right before our eyes. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. You have to think why. You got to not pay attention to the narrative that we see out there, but you have to begin to peel back the layers, what I call unlock, right? I call unveil, right? And I call also unleash. So we're going to unlock the truth. You got to get in there, and then you got to unveil what is happening, and then you unleash the power of the knowledge that you get from learning what you learn. All right. And that's something that we have to know. And so again, don't pay attention to the headlines. Pay attention to what they're not saying. Pay attention to what they're not showing you. Pay attention to what they're not putting in front, and then we will get some better answers. We may not know exactly what is happening, but we definitely could go deeper with the why it's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time to do that, and it's a must to do that. Hug your children, hug your loved ones, kiss your cousins, your brothers, your loved one, your wife, husbands, whatever, significant others, partners, whatever the pronoun is, whatever it is, just show love. It's time for that love, because we're going to have to come together on the ground level and begin to, as you hear all of them say, trust the witnesses, right? Because that's where the real truth is. The truth is on the ground, not what's flying around up there. It's what's happening to people that's on the ground. All right. And so with that being said, I'll see you all on the other side and be here next Tuesday. In a couple of weeks, Paul Wallace will be here with us. You don't want to miss that episode on the 27th. And then we're going to have a vote-a-thon too next Saturday on my channel, where I'm going to be there 8 hours, different people. And all we're going to do is vote for the Conscious Awards. I want it. All right. All right. Don't forget, if you need to contact me, go to thewildbitsecret.com. There's a contact form, and I'm there for you. And all right. Love y'all.
Why did Ruby shoot Oswald? Was there a conspiracy?
In a world shrouded in darkness and obscured by deception from the big secret keepers, a burning question ignites in the hearts and minds of truth seekers. Why? Let's dive into the abyss of the unknown. Challenge the limits of our understanding.
This bizarre sequence of double killings raised great questions. Who actually fired the shot that killed Kennedy?
Pierce the veil of secrecy.
Cattle found dead and the manner of their deaths are a real mystery.
Anyone who is concerned about lead in the drinking water in Flint.
And venture into the realm of conspiracies and extraterrestrial evidence.